Welcome back to some new r/petty revenge stories, where people share small victories over those who wronged them. I hope you had a great day. The first story is called All the Flags. About 20 years ago, I worked for a lawn care company. My job was to apply fertilizer and weed killer. I had to drive all over and got to meet a lot of people, but this guy sticks out. I was in a very nice neighborhood. The lawns were huge and required over an hour to get the job done. No big deal, that's what they pay me for. After putting down the fertilizer, I would go around and spot spray the weeds. While I did this, I would put out pesticide treatment flags. I'd put one in each corner of the lawn. I figured if I showed I got the corners, they would assume I got the middle too. The owner of this house was home. I could see him watching me through the windows. No big deal. He was a smaller dude. I am not. He watched me do the whole treatment. I put out my 4 flags, got in my truck and moved on, like I always did. When I got back to the shop, the secretary asked me about his lawn. Apparently he was upset because there were no flags in the middle. How could he be sure I did it all? He apparently screamed at the secretary about it. I was stunned. I assured her I did my job, and she and my boss believed me. I even said he watched me do it. They asked why he wouldn't say anything to me. I said he looked small. Maybe he didn't want to confront me. I had played offensive line in college and looked the part. They laughed and said that was likely the case. But they said I should go back the next day and spot spray the weeds again, making sure to put out more flags. The flags came in bundles of 50. I put at least one bundle in my pocket and got to work. About every 6 steps, I put down a flag. He was going to know that I hit every inch of his yard. He watched me do this. By the time I was done, his lawn was practically white. When I got back to the shop that afternoon, my boss and the secretary were smirking. They told me he called again. I shrugged and said, well, he knows for sure I got his whole yard now, right? They burst out laughing and said, that's what we told him. The next story is called Destroyed Garden. This happened in the summer of 2020. I live in the bottom unit of a duplex house with my mom and sister when I'm not at school. Landlady and her family live in the upper unit. That summer, I decided to do a bit of gardening. I had access to good organic fertilizers from a research greenhouse I was working at, as well as seeds, and even a little space to grow them until they reached their transplanting stage. So I made good use of my employee perks and planted some herbs on the employee bench in one of the greenhouses. Always wanted a little herb pot for fresh summer salad dressings and soups. After transplanting my herbs into a nice garden pot I bought at Walmart, I brought my herb pot home and placed it in the backyard, right beside the shed. It was partially shaded, out of the way, and didn't obstruct the view of my landlady's flower garden from her bedroom window. In fact, you wouldn't even know it was there, unless you walked past the shed, because that's how hidden it was. Fast forward a week. I came home one day and went to check on my herbs, only to find the pot had been moved to the edge of the garden and was empty. She pulled out my herbs that I've been growing for over a month and said she liked the pot, so she's using it for her own flowers. She also had the gall to make me take care of them and the rest of her garden, because she was leaving town for a week. And I worked in a research greenhouse, so I had access to good gardening materials. What she didn't know was that I was a plant pathology assistant. Perfect chance for a bit of petty revenge. I agreed to take care of her plants. Most of her flowers were pretty resistant to diseases, but she had 3 rose bushes, red, yellow and pink, that she absolutely loved. Bought the bushes back in 2017 for a total of $500. And she showed them off to anyone who dropped by for a visit. So I went to work the next day with a few jars and snuck a bunch of pests and infested soil into them. Went home and released them all into her garden. It took a few weeks for the results to show, but those bugs did their job. Spots started appearing all over the plants and flowers. By the end of the summer, her garden was ruined. She had to dig up the entire garden to get rid of everything. Better yet, not once did she suspect me. She thought the squirrels and birds infected her plants. She ended up having to buy new roses the next year, which cost her $600. She bragged about how expensive they were. In the end, it took a while, but it was satisfying. The last story is called Not Signing Our Lease. During 2022, my family and I were renting a mobile home that we had resided in for nearly 9 years. We got on well with the previous landlord. He was the owner of the property and a decent guy who always fixed things when they were broke. And if he wasn't able to, we would, and deduct the cost of the repairs from the rent. He didn't even make us sign a lease beyond the initial one back in 2013. We just verbally agreed to keep the rent the same, with the same arrangement for repairs and whatnot. Fast forward to 2020. I found out that the guy had passed away, and since he was childless, his ex-wife had inherited the property. Right off the mark, the lady was a pain, stating that she didn't want to manage her property, but seeing as we had rented from her ex for so many years, she would give it a shot for a time and see how it worked out. My husband and I listed all the issues that still needed addressing with the house. They weren't necessarily pressing issues, but they would become bigger problems in the future if they weren't taken care of soon. She assured us that she would be in touch soon to assess the issues and get started on the work that was needed. Little did we know that the landlady was making an active effort to sell the property without telling us. Every conversation with her became stilted and short, and she kept talking about how she needed to conduct an inspection of the property. Normally, a pending inspection by a landlord would not have bothered me, but she would make attempts to enter the home without giving us proper notice. In my state, it is a minimum of 48 hours notice to enter a tenant's home, and it has to be made in writing. Then one day, our water was shut off by the water company for no reason that we could determine. I contacted the water company and was told that due to a water leak on the main water line to the house, we lived about 2/3 of a mile back from where our water meter was, and the wastage we had from it, they had shut off the water to prevent further wastage. I then contacted the landlady to let her know, because a repair like this was well beyond my or my husband's capabilities. We'd repaired smaller water leaks at the house itself, but this was a larger job that we didn't have the ability to repair ourselves. The landlady assured me that she would get someone out there to fix the problem, and the water company agreed to turn the water back on based on that assurance. Weeks went by, with a lot of back and forth from the landlady, always with some excuse as to why the water leak hadn't been fixed. Husband and I started looking for a new place to live that we could afford, but were having no luck. Eventually, the situation came to a head when I was woken by one of my kids. In her hand was a notice of eviction from the landlady. She had apparently just taped it on the front door and made no attempts to knock and speak with either myself or my husband. I immediately contacted her, asking her why she was evicting us, and she tried to gaslight me. She kept saying that she made numerous attempts to come to inspect the property, only to be blocked by me or my husband, and so she had sold the property. She gave us 3 weeks to move out. This was the week before Christmas. Once I told my husband, he began a search for another home. To my surprise, he found one. We got approval on our application, and we were moved in well before the landlady's deadline. Enter petty revenge. I changed all the exterior locks to the house before we left, and did not provide her with updated keys, in addition to taking with us parts to the circuit box that we had very recently replaced, that she had not reimbursed us for. I also left a note for the new owners, warning them about the water leak that hadn't been fixed. To my knowledge, no one lives there at the moment, and it's been almost a year since the property was sold, and there's not a thing that anyone could do, since we weren't on a paper lease, because she was too determined to offload the property and didn't want to fuss with signing a lease. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.